Stamo, I'm going to ask you, what types of processes are required before you would sort of put a style into production?
The most important is to have an accurate production pattern. Just because the sample machinist put a garment together, it doesn't mean it can go into production. Sample machinists, and that's their job, can put anything together and make it look beautiful. But when it goes into production, that's where problems start. So you have to have an accurate production pattern, and in the industry, this is a job by itself. You have somebody who's looking after the pattern before it goes on the cutting table. It's very, very important. You have to have a correct making sample. You have to have specification sheet. You have to have an accurate technical drawing. You have to have a docket, and you have to have all trims and fabrics in bulk, not the correct, a sample piece of fabric, because it might not react the same way as your bulk fabric when it goes through the processes of pressing and buttonholing and everything. Next thing is, you don't just hand it to the factory and you wash your hands of it. You need to approve pre-production if the factory hasn't made your sample, in which case you will ask the factory, can you cut and make one? Depending on the quantity, you might ask for more than one size. I mean, I don't know, different factories work different ways. As soon as you approve pre-production, then production can commence. It's very important because you cover both ways. And then maybe in pre-production stage, you need to alter something because something is not working, which was working in your sample, which was made by your sample machinist, who is a goddess. She can make everything.
Broadly speaking, a production person will be trying to control 3 areas. Those are cost, getting garments made to the correct cost price. They'll be controlling the schedule so that everything is made to the right time, and also quality standards. I mean, anything can actually potentially go wrong within any of those 3 categories. I'd like to highlight one which I've come across recently with a designer that's currently in production with a factory that I know of, and the factory on this occasion were instructed to cut into the docket. The fabric was delivered on time. They cut into the fabric, and then hey presto, the designer, when they happened to be in the factory, they saw that the fabric was the wrong one, or there was a problem with the fabric. So the question here is, whose problem was that and whose fault? Was it the factories or the designers? In my opinion, it's the designers, because the onus is on the designer to make sure that you're happy with all the fabrics and materials that are going to make up your product. And if your factory is close to home, that sort of problem is easy to control. But if your factory is abroad, you can't, for example, Turkey, you can't necessarily pop over to Turkey and check your fabric. In that sort of situation, you need a system in place to check that fabric. And if the very least thing that you can do is have them send swatches back to you before they cut, well then, hey presto, that's your system.
Okay. Can I add another little one to that? On the production orders should be, in my opinion anyway, a piece of the fabric cut out right side up. I think that's fairly standard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'd like, if we were going to do a production, I'd like to see my factory make the sample, have the designer there during production, just before production, as the materials come in. I'd like to see them there as the first production run comes off the machines. They approve them there and then. That's the best way to avoid any disasters.